Welcome to this peaceful exploration of farming methods. Let your mind drift gently as we explore the fascinating world of how plants grow, whether in the earth beneath our feet or in systems designed by human innovation. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let these facts wash over you like a gentle stream. Let's begin with something fundamental, something as old as civilization itself: soil farming. Soil farming is traditional agriculture, the kind that has fed humanity for thousands of years. It relies on natural soil as the growing medium. Think of soil as a living, breathing ecosystem beneath our feet. It's filled with nutrients that plants need, microorganisms that break down organic matter, and a complex structure that holds water and air. When farmers plant seeds in soil, they're tapping into this ancient natural system. The roots reach down into the earth, drawing up minerals and water. The soil provides not just physical support, but a whole community of life that helps plants thrive. This is the method our ancestors used, and it's still the foundation of most agriculture around the world today. Now, let's drift towards something more modern. Soilless farming represents a different approach entirely. Instead of relying on earth, soilless farming uses methods like hydroponics, aeroponics, and aquaponics. In hydroponics, plant roots grow directly in nutrient-rich water. In aeroponics, roots hang in the air and are misted with nutrients. In aquaponics, fish and plants grow together in a symbiotic system where fish waste provides nutrients for plants. These methods deliver everything plants need directly through water or mist, bypassing soil completely. It's a bit like the difference between getting your nutrients from a varied diet versus taking a perfectly balanced vitamin supplement. Both can work, but they operate on different principles. Let's consider the root environment, where plants live most of their hidden lives. In soilless systems, farmers have remarkable control. They can adjust the exact amount of nutrients, ensure optimal oxygen levels reach the roots, and maintain precise moisture levels. It's like having a thermostat for plant health. Soil farming, on the other hand, depends on the natural conditions of the soil. The farmer can amend the soil, add compost, and improve it over time, but ultimately, they're working with what nature provides in that particular location. The soil's composition, its drainage, its microbial life, all of these are shaped by years, decades, even centuries of natural processes. There's something humbling about that dependence on nature. When we think about nutrients, the differences become even clearer. Soil nutrients are incredibly variable. The soil in one field might be rich in nitrogen, but poor in phosphorus. The soil across the road might be completely different. Seasonal changes affect nutrient availability too. Spring rains might wash nutrients deeper into the soil. Summer heat might change how microbes break down organic matter. Soil farmers learn to read their land, to understand its rhythms and quirks. Soilless farming takes a different approach. Farmers use carefully measured nutrient solutions, mixed to exact specifications. Every plant gets the same balanced diet every day. It's consistent, predictable, controlled. There's no guessing about whether the soil has enough calcium or iron. The farmer knows exactly what goes into the water, and therefore, what reaches each plant. Water is precious, increasingly so in our changing world. Here's where soilless farming shows a remarkable advantage. These systems typically use 70 to 90% less water compared to traditional soil farming. How is this possible? In soil farming, water soaks into the ground. Some of it reaches plant roots, but much of it drains away, evaporates, or gets taken up by weeds. It's an inherently inefficient system, though it's the one nature designed. Soilless systems recirculate water. What the plants don't use gets captured, refreshed with nutrients, and delivered again. Almost nothing is wasted. In a world where fresh water is becoming scarcer, this efficiency matters deeply. Imagine two farms growing the same amount of lettuce. The soil farm might use 10,000 gallons of water, while the hydroponic farm uses only 1,000. That's a profound difference. Space efficiency is another area where these methods diverge. Yield per square foot tells an interesting story. Soilless farming often produces significantly higher yields in much smaller spaces. Why? Plants can be packed more densely because their roots don't need to spread out searching for nutrients. Everything they need is delivered right to them. Vertical farming takes this even further, stacking layers of plants upward. A warehouse with vertical hydroponic systems might produce as much food as many acres of traditional farmland. Soil farming needs more space because plants must spread their roots to find nutrients and water. Each plant needs its territory. There's also space needed for equipment to move through fields. Still, there's something magnificent about seeing acres of crops swaying in the wind, stretching to the horizon. Climate shapes farming in powerful ways. Soil farming is heavily affected by weather and climate patterns. A late frost can devastate a crop. A drought can leave fields parched and barren. Too much rain can drown roots or promote disease. Farmers read the sky, check forecasts, and hope. They're in partnership with forces beyond their control. Soilless systems can operate indoors or in controlled environments, like greenhouses. Temperature, humidity, light, all can be regulated. A hydroponic farm in Alaska can grow tomatoes in January. An aeroponic system in Arizona isn't worried about drought. This control comes at a cost in energy and infrastructure, but it provides certainty. No hailstorm will destroy a crop that's growing safely indoors. Pests and diseases present different challenges in each system. Soil farming is more vulnerable to soil-borne pests and diseases. Fungi, bacteria, nematodes, and insects live in the soil, and some of them harm plants. Once soil is contaminated with a particular pathogen, it can persist for years. Farmers rotate crops, use resistant varieties, and sometimes must rely on chemical treatments. Soilless farming significantly reduces these risks. Without soil, many soil-borne problems simply can't establish themselves. The clean, controlled environment of a hydroponic system is less hospitable to pests. That doesn't mean soilless farms are immune to all problems, but they start with an advantage. It's easier to keep a system clean when you're dealing with water and sterile growing media instead of complex, living soil. This leads us naturally to chemical inputs. Soil farming often requires herbicides to control weeds and pesticides to manage insects and diseases. The amount varies tremendously depending on the crop, location, and farming practices. Organic soil farmers use fewer synthetic chemicals, but may use approved natural pesticides. Conventional soil farming, on the scale needed to feed billions, has come to rely heavily on chemical inputs. Soilless farming reduces or even eliminates the need for many of these chemicals. No soil means no soil-dwelling weeds, so herbicides often aren't necessary. The controlled environment reduces pest pressure, lowering pesticide needs. However, soilless farms still need nutrients, which come from somewhere, whether mined minerals or other sources. Neither system is entirely without environmental considerations. Finally, let's consider the practical matter of startup costs. Soil farming generally has lower initial costs, at least in areas where farmland is available. A farmer needs land, seeds, perhaps some equipment and amendments for the soil. The basics of soil farming are accessible, which is why it's been practiced for millennia. Soilless farming requires significant investment in infrastructure and technology. Hydroponic systems need tanks, pumps, monitoring equipment, and often climate control systems. The nutrient solutions must be precisely mixed. The initial investment can be substantial. However, over time, the higher yields, lower water costs, and reduced need for some chemicals can offset these costs. It's a different economic calculation, weighing upfront investment against long-term efficiency. As we close this segment, consider how both methods represent humanity's relationship with food and nature. Soil farming connects us to ancient rhythms, to the earth itself, to the legacy of every farmer who has ever scattered seeds and waited for rain. Soilless farming represents innovation, control, and adaptation to new challenges like climate change and urban food needs. Both have their place in feeding our world. Both deserve our appreciation and understanding. Let these thoughts settle gently in your mind as you drift toward rest. Let's continue our gentle journey through the world of farming, exploring how these different methods work in practice, day after day, season after season. Breathe slowly, relax, and let your mind wander through these fascinating contrasts. Operating costs tell us much about the daily reality of farming. Soilless systems, for all their efficiency in some areas, often face higher energy and maintenance costs. Those pumps that circulate nutrient solution need electricity. Climate control systems that maintain perfect temperatures require power, sometimes substantial amounts of it. The technology must be monitored and maintained. Sensors need calibration. Systems need cleaning. It's a bit like the difference between a simple bicycle and an electric car. The car might be more efficient in some ways, but it needs charging, software updates, and specialized maintenance. Soil farming, meanwhile, relies more heavily on land and labor. The land itself represents a major cost, especially in productive agricultural regions. Labor for planting, weeding, harvesting adds up significantly. Fuel for tractors and equipment is another consideration. Each system has its economic rhythms, its pattern of expenses that farmers must manage carefully. Scalability reveals fundamentally different approaches to growth. When a soilless farm wants to expand, it builds upward. Vertical farming stacks, growing layers, one atop another. A single building might house multiple floors of production, each level bathed in LED light, each plant receiving its precise dose of nutrients. This vertical scaling works remarkably well in urban areas where land is scarce and expensive. A warehouse in Brooklyn or Singapore can become a farm. Soil farming scales horizontally, spreading across the landscape. To grow more, a soil farmer needs more land. Fields expand outward. This requires large land areas, which means soil farming gravitates toward rural regions where space is available. Picture the difference: a tower of growing plants reaching toward the sky versus fields stretching toward the horizon. Both are forms of abundance, but shaped entirely differently by their methods. Soil health and regeneration bring us to one of the most profound considerations in agriculture. Soil is alive. When soil farming is done sustainably, using practices like crop rotation, cover cropping, and composting, it can actually improve ecosystems over time. Healthy soil sequesters carbon, filters water, supports biodiversity from earthworms to beneficial bacteria. Well-managed farmland can be an environmental asset, a landscape that gives back even as it produces food. However, poor practices tell a different story. Overuse of chemicals, excessive tilling, monoculture crops year after year, these can degrade land dramatically. Soil erodes, nutrients deplete, the living community within the soil diminishes. Land that once was fertile can become exhausted. This is why sustainable soil management matters so deeply. We're not just growing food for this year, but stewarding the land for generations to come. Soilless farming, having no soil to heal or harm, operates outside this ancient cycle entirely. The consistency of production affects how we eat and how food systems operate. Soilless farming offers something remarkable: year-round, predictable production. A hydroponic greenhouse doesn't care if it's January or July. Lettuce grows on the same schedule. Tomatoes ripen continuously. This consistency allows for steady planning, reliable supply chains, and stable prices. Supermarkets can count on regular deliveries. Soil farming, by contrast, is often deeply seasonal. Tomatoes ripen in summer, pumpkins in fall. Winter might bring root vegetables in some climates, or nothing at all in others. This seasonality connects us to natural cycles, gives us the pleasure of waiting for strawberry season or the first corn of summer. But it also means abundance turns to scarcity as seasons change. Farmers harvest intensively during peak season, then fields lie dormant. There's a poetry to this rhythm, but also economic and logistical challenges. Both patterns have shaped how humans eat and celebrate food throughout history. Not all crops are created equal when it comes to these different systems. Crop suitability varies dramatically. Leafy greens and herbs absolutely excel in soilless systems. Lettuce, basil, arugula, spinach. These crops have shallow roots, short growing cycles, and high value. They're perfect for hydroponics. They grow quickly, efficiently, and command good prices at market. Many commercial hydroponic operations focus exclusively on these crops because the economics work so well. Root crops and grains, however, are better suited to soil farming. Carrots need space to extend downward. Potatoes grow beneath the surface. Wheat and rice require vast expanses and have relatively low value per pound, making the high-tech investment of soilless systems impractical. You'll probably never see hydroponic wheat fields, not because it's impossible, but because it doesn't make economic sense. Each method finds its natural niche, its ideal crops. Labor requirements have evolved differently in these systems. Soilless farming increasingly uses automation and monitoring technology. Sensors track pH levels, nutrient concentrations, temperature, humidity. Automated systems adjust conditions as needed. In some advanced vertical farms, robots move growing trays, harvest crops, even package them. Human workers still play essential roles, but technology handles much of the routine monitoring and adjustment. Soil farming remains more labor-intensive in many ways. Planting, weeding, harvesting, especially for crops that can't be mechanically harvested, requires human hands. There's equipment, certainly. Tractors, combines, sophisticated GPS-guided machinery. But the fundamental work of soil farming still involves substantial human labor. Think of migrant workers moving through strawberry fields, or families working together to bring in the harvest. That human element remains central. The environmental footprint of each system presents complex trade-offs. Soil farming uses natural resources, rainfall or irrigation water, the soil itself, the sun's light. But it can cause runoff carrying fertilizers and pesticides into waterways. Soil erosion can deposit sediment in streams. Tillage releases carbon from soil into the atmosphere. The environmental impact depends enormously on how the farming is practiced. Soilless farming dramatically reduces runoff because water is recirculated rather than allowed to drain away. This protects waterways. However, soilless systems use electricity, often substantial amounts for lighting and climate control. That electricity must come from somewhere, likely fossil fuels in many regions. They also use plastics for growing systems, pipes, and containers. Neither system is without environmental cost. The question becomes which impacts we can better manage or mitigate. Food safety is an increasingly important consideration in our interconnected world. Soilless farming reduces contamination risks from soil pathogens. Bacteria like E. coli or Salmonella often enter crops through contact with contaminated soil or water. By eliminating soil and carefully managing water systems, soilless farms create cleaner growing conditions. This doesn't make them immune to all food safety issues, but it removes several major risk factors. Leafy greens recalls often trace back to soil contamination. Hydroponic greens, grown in controlled environments, have proven safer in this regard. For consumers, this means greater confidence in food safety, fewer illness outbreaks, and less food waste from contamination events. It's a quiet benefit that nonetheless matters greatly to public health. Local food production has become a powerful movement, and soilless systems enable something special: farming in cities. Urban warehouses, rooftops, even basements can become productive farms using hydroponic or aeroponic systems. This radically reduces transportation distances. Lettuce grown in a Brooklyn warehouse can be on a Manhattan restaurant's table within hours, not days. This reduces food miles, the distance food travels from farm to plate. Fewer miles mean less fuel consumption, lower emissions, and fresher food. It means cities can produce some of their own food rather than depending entirely on distant rural areas. For resilience and sustainability, this localization matters. Imagine if every city could grow a portion of its own vegetables, right where people live. Soilless farming makes that vision increasingly practical. As we draw this segment to a close, let's consider the future of agriculture itself. Here's perhaps the most important insight. Soil and soilless farming are not competitors locked in a battle where one must triumph over the other. They are complementary systems, each with strengths and ideal applications. The world needs both to feed a growing global population approaching 8 billion people and beyond. Soil farming will continue to produce the grains, legumes, and many fruits and vegetables that feed the majority of humanity. Its connection to natural ecosystems and its relatively low barriers to entry make it essential, especially in developing regions. Soilless farming will increasingly provide fresh vegetables in cities, in harsh climates, in places where traditional agriculture struggles. It will use less water, produce food closer to consumers, and push the boundaries of efficiency. Together, these approaches represent humanity's creativity and adaptability. Together, they offer hope that we can feed everyone while caring for our planet. Let that hopeful thought accompany you into peaceful rest.